All right, so let's actually apply this stuff. We're gonna make, like I said, we're gonna be making using the Form tool workspace and such. We're making some kitchen utensils, basic shapes, building out the forms into three-dimensional objects. You take it from there. Again, we're gonna start with making like some basic like spoons, knives, that sort of thing. You want to convince me something much more insane is a kitchen utensil? Cool, as long as it's using the same workspace tools. So let me switch over. First thing is we made just some basic spoons. Like I said, two can be similar, so it can be an original object, and then the other can be a modified version of that, and the third has to be its entirely separate thing. I do expect handles, details, all that sort. Excuse me. So a real simple way of working is something like the spoon shape. So let's start a new project. Save what you got. Example, we'll say new spoon. All right. So how we're going to go about this is obviously start with create form. So you can most certainly work from a pre-made shape. That does help. Um, let's see if I remember to insert or have a picture on hand. The old spoon image. Why not? All right. That'll probably work. Hit OK. And how big should a spoon normally be? I don't know. Let's say it's about 6 inches, which is roughly about 150 millimeters. Okay. So go to canvases, right click to calibrate, top, pick 2 points, or you can make this a gigantic spoon. So right now it's 34. Let's say, I don't know, oh, 165 for no good reason. Resize, and there we are. Okay. So I'm currently still in the Form Workspace. No need. I don't need to be out of the Form Workspace to work. But what we're going to do is basically break this into two separate objects and then merge them and such. So starting point, easy starting point would be, let's start with a sphere. Build from there. Close enough is close enough. You're going to drag this roughly to the size. That'll work. Now, like I said, one of the main things, keep this simple for now. If I need to bring the amount of faces down a bit, that will work best. So there we are. Super duper. Okay. Yeah, what's up?
How do you make sure that the circle is like perfectly in the middle? So it's easy.
Doesn't have to be,
Oh.
but I just dropped it in place. Yeah, it don't have to, it doesn't have to be exactly in the center, but it does help. Now, the one thing with reducing the amount of faces here, symmetry kind of gets more difficult to mess with. So what I mean by that is I'm looking at it from the top, and I really want this to be symmetrical left and right. So I would need to rotate this sphere. So let's grab that, rotate it so that line lines up with the major axis. That'll work much better. So now I can apply symmetry. Let's do internal symmetry, cross, and now you can see that green line is applied across the sides. Great. Now, you might want to think, all right, sphere, all right, that means I need to push part of it down, blah, 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 blah. No, I just told you, you can delete faces, convert this into a surface. So let's do a from the right selection, selecting all the things above the equator of the thing, hit delete. Now that is going to be a surface. Let me go back to Control in or Command in just so I have auto color on. So this is now going to read as a surface. Cool. Now we can start to manipulate. So we've used the edit form space. This makes sense. Sometimes it's going to depend on how you like to work. Sometimes working through vertices works well. But one of the other things is this is all pretty direct, as in, all right, I'm going to have to select all of these. I'm going to have to smush this down, but it all kind of follows suit. I don't really have a lot of like soft control. It's all pretty sharp edges. Well, that's exactly where this drop down here is, soft modification. So right now you can see my selection, just kind of like the red line, anything like that. If I select the checkbox soft modification, now if I select, say, all the bottom ones down here, You see how my black line has turned red and kind of diffuses upward? That is the visualization for how far the effect is. Now you have these options here, the distance, so you can select by extent and how heavy the weight is. Extent, you can shrink it. So that would be, I don't know, I don't like 30. So let's just say so small, let's say 10 millimeters. All right. Now you see that that line went from red all the way up to the end here. Now it's black and red, and it kind of starts to divide, it kind of starts to fade out into white. That's showing the area of effect. So now when I click and drag, you can see how it's much more smooth. It doesn't, it kind of smooths out the line, smooths out the edges a lot more effectively. And this is a great way to work using the soft modifiers, because otherwise you get some really hard, sharp edges and such. Don't, whoops. You have, of course, a whole bunch of different shrink and grow methods, stuff like that. These are all that, and you, of course, have your numeric inputs. A lot of the stuff that kind of gets to be a little overkill. I honestly like to just work with just selecting and moving them up and down. Now, the problem is see, now that I've selected all of these, the red goes all the way to the edge. This line was lining up right with the green line, which is my virtual plane. Now, as I move it up, it's actually going past that because I have the soft modifier on. So let's Control Z that last bit. I'm going to turn off the soft modification. And now when I select all those, that line stays put. That's because the area of influence is much smaller, but it does kind of get a little bit weird and squishy. So use that as you like. So if I wanted, I can go back. If I really wanted to keep it kind of smoother, I can go back, turn the soft modifier on, but let's shrink the area of influence to like 5 millimeters. So now that no longer affects the top there, now I can get a little bit more effect, a little more control over that. Okay. So that allows me to play a little bit more easily, kind of shrinking the depth of the spoon. You make this as much of a scoop or spoon as much as you like. So now from the top, let's play around with the shape. Go back to there. So now maybe instead of vertices, I want to work with the edges. So that's going to allow me to work with, say, like just there. I can turn the soft modifier back on. As I drag it outward, it's kind of pulling a lot more than I would like. So let's Control Z that and turn off the soft modifier. Sometimes sometimes it's going to work better for you, sometimes not. But right now, because that's such a large space working through the edge, doesn't seem to work as well for me. I can shrink it, and that's going to do some stuff. That's going to get me closer. But honestly, I think instead I'm going to work by vertex. So I'm going to select that one, drag forward. If I go to the side, problem is it doesn't really work as well because now I've got like a really sharp lip. So let's Control Z that, and a lot of this is going to be a lot of back and forth. But I'm going to work by vertex, and instead, now I'm going to select all of the vertices there. Go to the right, and now let's kind of drag that forward. You can see how now all of them are kind of following along. So a lot of this is not a precision project. This is very much going to be close enough is going to be close enough. So let's select from there. Let's go toward the back. Starting to look like kind of a pretty funky spoon. So if I wanted, I could work by these vertices, but now I think it might work better by edge. So let's grab that edge, move it inward. Every once in a while, just warp around, see how it's going. You can see from the side, it's a pretty shallow spoon. Maybe I should have made it a little bit deeper. Okay, well, let's select all of those vertices again, drag downward a little bit, drag downward. So again, this is all going to be just a little bit back and forth, nudge it, push it, tweak it. How you do? Hey, let's call that close enough for now. It's a shallow bowl. That'll work. All right. So let's hit OK. So just for my own sake, I'm going to hit save and say spoon bowl. So now I want to make the handle. Now, technically, I could absolutely take one of these edges and drag it outward, but I want to show you how to merge different form bodies together. So I'm going to start with a plane. So like we talked about before, a plane is an entire flat shape, complete with its own edges and vertices and faces. Or in this case, a T-spline plane. Okay. Works the same way, as in you have to pick a plane to work from. Now, unfortunately, what I should have done was made sure that my spoon was a little bit closer to the center line there, because trying to build this is going to be throwing me off. So what I might want to do is build outward, or what I might want to do is edit that image. And I probably should have just moved it over just a little bit. There we go. Just 1 millimeter seemed to work a good bit. So let me select that body, do the same. Why is that 2 millimeter, but lines up better? Don't know. Whatever. So in all reality, you should totally line up your image before you start working. All right, that just works a little bit better. It's a little bit easier to follow along the handle. Again, you're making this your own, so if you deviate from whatever image you're using, that's fine. You can use an image as simply like image canvas is simply a good reference point. All right, so I'm going to restart working with the plane. Select working on that one. All right, I'm just going to select somewhere in the middle because this starts by building, excuse me, like a center point rectangle. So I'm going to stay on the major axis, in this case the y-axis, somewhere out here. And I do not need it to go all the way over to the handle or to the bowl. Somewhere else close enough. Probably should have moved it over a little bit, but whatever. Hit OK. Let's see how many faces we got. All right. So length faces 2. Yep. But let's add a couple going this way. Sure. Fine. Default was length symmetry. If I did not have that checked already, let's say hit OK. And I do want to have symmetry applied. You can always go back afterwards. Yep. Internal symmetry on one side of the face. On the other, green line applies. Let me change the color so you can see the green line more clearly. There we go. And there you go, because I want to make sure that this is symmetrical on either side. Okay, cool. Back to edit form. A lot of this is going to be edit form. In this case, I think working with an edge will make a little more sense. So I'm going to select that one, and I'm just going to drag that forward. That shrink the distance between. Again, if I had instead had soft modifier on, have a little more soft control. Doesn't really matter. It's up to you. Excuse me. If I want to select my vertex, grab that one and just drag that outward. You can see how it instantly starts to smooth around and such. If you decide, you know what, I wish I had a little more control here, say like in between here, this is where you could go in and add an edge. So insert edge allows you to select it, create an edge anywhere between two starting edges. So if I select here, it's going to try to put it over here. Or if I put negative, it's going to go over this way, which is what I want. I want to make sure if I have it on both, that's going to go on either side of that edge I selected. So single is good, but because I have symmetry on, when I hit OK, it's going to apply it to both sides or on either side of that symmetrical line. Cool. So that just adds edge, so I can add a little more complexity to it. That's all. Again, just playing around here. Let's say selecting that edge there. We'll get it closer. I don't want to get it right up against the bowl here. I'll show you why in a minute. So let's select by vertex, and you can start playing around, panning. If you start rounding out these edges, if they get away from being straight up and down, that's perfectly okay. Close enough there. Now, one of the things here, I showed you how you can delete faces. To get a truly curved edge here, so for the back, you can delete vertices as well, and edges. So let's select that vertex, hit delete. Now it's going to round it out. That's going to shrink some stuff, and sometimes you're going to run into some weird effects because essentially you've just taken a corner and deleted the corner, but it's still two edge lines. So it just sometimes it'll read as two different ones. But that's an easy way to make something much more rounded. Just delete the vertex that connects the two. All right. And again, just playing around. Close enough is going to be close enough. I don't know. Edge there. Let's scale it up. Two-dimensional scale. Okay, sure, fine, whatever. Hit OK. All right. That is your basic handle. Now, it's still just a surface, so when I go to look from the right side, flat plane. Remember, a surface is essentially a sheet of paper. That's it. So until you add dimension, it's essentially just that. So we're going to add dimension to it, but first, let me save. All right. Simple handle. Cool. The other tool we're going to use is called the bridge tool. And this is exactly that. it creates surfaces, creates a surface between. Technically, there are things like merge edge, which just snaps them together, but bridge is what I want to use here. Now, the trick to bridge is, though, it has to have the same amount of faces on either side. So this is why I simplified that sphere down to six edges, or sorry, six faces. So I have a face edge on here and a face edge here. So two on the side of the on the side of the handle. One, two. I need those to match. If they don't match, so if say like this was two and this was four, all you would need to do over here, use the insert edge, and you could go to both. And if I added edge like that, now I just created one, two, three, four. So it's really easy to subdivide a face to add edges so that the bridge tool has the correct number of faces to match. All right, so let's use the bridge tool. Again, you have your two sides. I'm going to select this one, double click that side. Side two, I have to check it off on the toolbox. Side two here. You do have a preview tool. This will show you how many sides. You have how many faces. Let's simplify that to one. See, it's not showing the preview. It should be showing the preview. What's going on here? Oh, I somehow accidentally selected the entire edge here. I just wanted one and two. There we go. I accidentally had selected the entire perimeter of the bowl. All right, so I have my preview. Again, this is the simplified box mode visualization there. There we go. You can, of course, if you really want to keep it sharp, keep creases. I don't. Let's say okay. So that just created this whole rounded edge here to bridge the two, hence bridge. Now, the whole thing here is it did keep it really flat. So if that's not something you wanted, easy way to go about that. Whoa, what happened there? That did some weird curvature to my bowl here. So, all right, so I'm going to do some modifying in general. Let me Control Z that. Don't want that. So a couple of things. One, unless you've got a really cheap set of spoons, they're not going to be flat. So I'm going to go back and I want to modify the handle a little bit simply by go to Edit Form. We'll go by Vertex. I can see a little more clearly. Let's put a little curvature to that spoon handle. So I'm going to select those, just drag that upwards a little bit. Actually, I think all of these probably should be up just a little bit here. Probably going to make like the most uncomfortable spoon handle here. You could also, if you selected, say, multiples like here, you could use the rotate tool. Now, that is going to be an extremely non-functional spoon, but you see what you can get to do with it. All right, so there we go. It's just a little bit, it's a little bit more ergonomic or not. There we go. You can free transform these. Yeah, that is a funky spoon. Whatever, it's your spoon. You do it how you want. So now bridge should work a little bit more effectively. Hit OK. All right. The other thing is if bridge is working a little bit too large. So if it is, let's try it again here. Double click or just click on that side. You see how much larger the edge is here. So it's going to create some pretty weird stuff. So it created much bigger surface, but actually that's a pretty smooth transition. And it did not select the front. I had accidentally had that selected in a weird way. So, okay, if you don't want that to be that way, remember you could also repeat the bridge. Let's select both of those. Change it out. And if you wanted, say, keep creases, hit OK. Makes a much sharper edge transition right here. That's all. And again, unfortunately, because you cannot work like we normally would have, like go back and just go back and edit a tool, we have to Control Z or Command Z if you're on Mac and reapply the bridge entirely. But one of the other things I wanted to show you is, all right, say you did not want that big, huge flange on that. Well, you could easily just subdivide just that upper edge there. And let's shrink that surface to, I don't know, 0.4, so it's a whole number. And it's on both, so it's doing on both sides. Great. Okay. Now, obviously, anytime you add an edge, it is going to add, it's just adding more subdivision, so it will reshape your tool, your form a little bit. If that's okay for you, great. If not, you got to go back and edit the tool. So now when we go to bridge, select both sides there. Now I have a little bit more control because it's just over this one little section there. I do not want to keep creases. So the selection is just a little bit smaller. That's all. So now that I have the bridge applied, now I have joined the handle shape and the bowl shape, and I can still go back and tweak this if I want. The other option, let's just save here, bridge, is now let's get it away from just being a simple surface. That's the other main tool here, thicken. Select the body. Like we talked before, you can add a little thickness. If you want a soft edge, it'll make it a rounded edge just like that. Sharp edge, just the same. The reason you might do no edge is if you then want to like manipulate it on your own. So I'm going to keep this as a soft edge. If you make this too thick with a soft edge, you end up with basically like toddler spoons. But hey, again, your spoon. 3 millimeter thick spoons, pretty beefy. So let's change that up, repeat thicken, and instead let's say 1.5 millimeter. Okay. Slightly less toddler-tastic. All right, I've made a basic spoon. Hooray. Thicken. All right, now I have a body, and I can start, and if I want, I can go back and manipulate from here. So how I did like this one, with the mega end there, go back, again, edit form. Edit form is going to be one of the main ones we're working with. I don't know, let's play with the surface here. All right, I can drag that upward. Oof, beefy. Or shrink that and then rotate. So that's a simple way to get some really weird shapes into. Again, you could then play around with, say, extruding. I don't know, let's give it, let's press and hold Alt. It extrudes outward. Now it's like a cobra spoon. I don't know. It's up to you. Or bug eyes. I don't know. Do whatever the hell you want with this. Or heck, if you really want, rotate it down, give it legs. I don't know. Freaky spoon is whatever you want to do. All right. Terrible spoon, finished form. Hey, I got no errors. Sweet. Strange spoon. All right. So we got spoon one. I want to be able to manipulate this to make variations of the same. So let's copy and paste. Control C, Control V, and just shift one over a bit. Hit OK. Cool. So now I have my two versions. If I want, like I said, for this assignment, it does need to be on two separate components. So let's create components. If I can spell spoon, that'd be even better. And then we'll select, oops, I forgot to do that. Uncheck the activate. Spork. Why not? All right, so let's click and drag. One goes onto one component, the other onto the other component. All right. So we got the spoon. That's the one we're going to keep. Going to hide that for now. Activate the spork. Do some weird stuff with this. All right. So first, I'm going to create a sketch. Easy way to keep track of what I'm doing. Let's project that body. Hit OK. Now I don't have to have the body present, visualized to do what I'm trying to do. All right. So if I want to keep this, my line symmetrical and such, easy way to do. Let's just create a construction line across something. Now I have a center point that I can now drag downward. Again, I'm just working off construction lines. These are just reference points. All right. If anything, might just select all the outer ones, turn that into a construction line too. These are just reference lines. Okay. So say, sure, spork. All right. That'll be a standard one. Let's create one section. That's a little large. Center point rectangle right on the end. How wide should those tines be? I don't know. 3 millimeters wide. and something deep. 60, sure. That should have been, I forgot to deactivate the construction line, so all of those off construction, although those cross sections do need to remain construction lines. Okay. Turn off construction line. Okay, I don't want to try to measure all those out. To heck with that. Let's use a pattern tool. But going to go to rectangle pattern, sketch objects, just select all the thing. There we go. Direction, we're going to go that way, but I want that to be symmetrical. And let's, I don't know, say 5. There we go. Add a few of these. Cool. And I already messed up because what I should have done, let me Control Z, I should have rounded that out first. So let's put a fillet onto that one, and same to there. Something close enough. There we go. Now let's do that. Now let's do that rectangle pattern, because why not do what you need to do right from the get-go? All right, that was going to be 5. Symmetric, and I don't know, something to that effect. That seems reasonable enough. Hit OK. Finish sketch. Now, unhide the body. Let's do an extrude of all of those things. I'm floating above the line there. So let's just extrude it straight down. It switches to cut. There we go. That was above the line. Darn. So let's go back, edit that feature. Apparently that should have been 2 sides. Let's also go upward. There we go. Less terrible. And then last bit, let's do a fillet to all of those insides there. And let's see here. What was that? Nope. Oh, I did a 1.5, so at most probably 0.7. Yeah, we're going to run into some issues here, trying to find what works. 4, 0.3. Oh, 3 worked. 3.5. Not too much. All right, 0.3 it is. Okay. You're definitely gonna run into some things that don't quite work. But all right, there we go. That is now a very completely unusable spork. Pretty straightforward way of making some stuff, making some modifications. You can very easily do some other modifiers, things like let's unhide the other one. So if I got that one, I don't know. We'll activate that one instead. And let's say do the same deal. Sketch on the plane. Project the body. Hit OK. Forgot which one I was working on. Had that body. Let's turn that into a projection line. Oh, not project. I wanted to turn that all into a sketch line. All right. I don't know. We'll make a circle right there. Should have made that construction line, or not construction line. I don't know. Now let's make another one somewhere out here. And use circle pattern. Center point is that center circle. Sorry, geez. Let's add a few more until it makes sense. Sure. Could have added even more. One more circle up here-ish. Probably should have used the rectangle pattern tool first, but there we go. All right, circle, center point. See if this still works. All righty. Finish sketch, unhide bodies. And with this one, what was I going to do? Oh, right. So if I just sketch extrude all of those, I'm going to get some weird results because it's all going to extrude straight through. Oh, let me hide that other one. So if I select all of those, unhide that body, it's going to get a weird cut through. Weird just being that that I'm going to get some weird distortion and such. So instead, what I could do is something like, let's try the emboss tool. Want to select sketch profiles is all of that. Easier to select from above. All of those. Faces to select to. That face. See if it'll work. Might be overloading the program. There we go, buddy. Oh, what's my error? Cannot emboss feature at that depth. Okay, deboss. Cut through. Sometimes you'll have to go with the extrude. Oh, it worked. Great. Let's just change that to -3 so it goes all the way through to make sure. All right. Come on. I believe in you, computer. You could do it. Maybe. I mean, pause for a moment so it okay. So the only reason with that I did that is that way that way the holes going through are uniform in how they're going through the curvature of that body, rather than if it was extrude, you'd get more distorted holes the further out you go. So yeah, if you can, try using a boss on curved surfaces like this. It'll work a lot better. All right. Strainer. So there you go. Couple different ways to make some simple tools. We'll work with if we get to it tonight, we'll do some more advanced stuffs. So play around with it. Don't forget to apply appearances. If it comes up, throw your appearances on. I don't know. What do we have? Heck yeah. Lead tools or lead spoon. That's supposed to be really good for you, right? We'll have one's lead and one is palladium because shiny and not. There we go. All right. Play around with it, see where you get to, and we'll go from there.